So I told you what feels like a million years ago now, but I feel like it might be like at least 3 to 4 months ago that I was gonna make a every baby knit I made in 2022 video, and I still haven't done that. So here we are. I sat down and I made a list of all the baby knits I made starting from October 2021 going all the way to December 2022, and I decided to include a few months of 2021 because I actually started knitting in 2021 in October because I was pregnant with Iris, my daughter, and I wanted to make her things. So that's the reason that I actually started knitting. So there's never been a video of the knits I made in 2021, at least not in English. So I decided to include those in this video because there's not that many. It's just October, November, December. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Lina. I live in Sweden, just outside of Uppsala, which is a city just north of Stockholm. And I live here with my partner Simon and our daughter Iris. And yeah, I've been knitting since 2021, which is not a long time, but I'm really enjoying it. And today my pollen allergies are really acting up. So if I sound like I'm cold, like I have a cold or something, that's because I have a lot of allergies at the moment. If I'm sniffling or something like that. I'm sure you can hear it and see it because I feel like my eyes are starting to go. But yeah, that's just spring for you. So, like I said, I started knitting in October in 2021. And Iris was born in December, so right before she was born. I had a lot of pains. I don't know the word for it in English. Foglossning in Swedish. Where is it pelvis? I should have checked this before. The area around your hips start to hurt a lot when you're pregnant, because they are starting to loosen up for the actual delivery of the child. I had a lot of pains with that from the end of my pregnancy with Iris. So I was sat a lot on the couch because I couldn't really do a lot, and it was COVID, so we weren't doing anything anyways. We were just at home. So I sat on the couch and was like, I need a wool blanket for Iris. And I could just buy one, or I could try to make one. Because I've always felt like I wanted to be a person who could knit. I wanted to be somebody who could be yeah, I made this sweater. And that felt like the perfect time. I did know the basics of how to knit because I did knit a scarf and a pair of gloves, I think, or mittens in school in 9th grade or something, which is a long time ago. But I was like, I can knit. Of course I can. So I bought the yarn, I bought the needles for this blanket that I had seen, and I was like, I'm gonna make this for my baby. That's what I'm gonna do with my time. So I sat on the couch and I made this blanket, and it turned out very much not like the pattern. So first of all, I don't have the blanket here because Iris is actually using it right now. So it's not here, but I'll show you a picture of it. The pattern I had, I'll bring up my list, was from Drops, I think. I didn't even write it down because I didn't really follow the pattern. The pattern was for a moss stitch blanket, and I was like, I know how to purl and I know how to knit. I can do this. But what I didn't really know was how to see the difference between the stitches, and I really think that I thought that I did. But it turns out that I did not, because this didn't turn out to be moss stitch. This turned out to be ribbing. So I made an entire blanket in ribbing, which was not very much what I had in mind when I started making it. But I was still very proud of that blanket. I still am. I made it in Drops Polaris, color 8. And that yarn is so chunky. I don't know what the actual weight definition of it is, but it's very, very chunky. So I actually made that on 20mm needles. That's crazy. And it was so fast, obviously. I made that in like one night. But it didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. It didn't look great. I didn't swatch for it because I didn't know what swatching was. So it turned out very rectangular instead of like square. So I was like, okay, I know how to knit now. So I'm just gonna make her another one. And I'm just gonna go for the one that I actually wanted, but that I was scared to make the first time around. Because I still had a lot of time to go because it was still October. And she was born in December. So I decided to make a full cabled blanket for her as my second project, because that's logical. After the fact that I messed up the first one and didn't make it moss stitch. So yeah, I went for the Dream of Cables Baby 33 pattern by Drops. It was a free pattern. And I used Drops Nepal in the color I don't know the actual color name, but it's very dark gray. I don't have that either because Iris is also using that right now. She's at preschool and they sleep outside. So she sleeps on the red blanket, like under her little... She has a whole setup, but like one of the things that she's sleeping on is the red blanket. And the gray blanket goes on top. So they're both with her right now, so I'll just show you pictures. So even if I messed the first one up, we're still using it, so it's not a waste, but it didn't turn out the way I planned. But yeah, I went for the Dream of Cables Baby blanket, and I really, really enjoyed that, and it turned out really nicely. I didn't swatch for that either, so the dimensions are wrong, and I had a lot of yarn left over. But I feel like it was a blanket, so it's not that important. It's not as if you're making a sweater. Then swatching is more important, I think, than if you're making a blanket, because you can just... doesn't really matter if it's a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller, or whatever. As long as you like the actual fabric you're creating. So that was the second baby knit I made. And like I said, I had a lot of leftover yarn from that project. So I had... After that, I was just making things to use that yarn. So I made like a headband for myself. I started mending a lot of socks that I had. And I made these. These are not really baby knits, but I'm going to include them because they're baby related. And they're a little bit weird, but I am proud of them. So I'm going to show them to you. With my leftover yarn, I made these. And you're like, what are those? I'm gonna show you the right way around. That way. I made these. I didn't have a pattern for this. And I don't know if I could probably have done it in a better way. And you can see they're not identical because this one... Oh, that's the right way around. Because this one has a little boop and this one doesn't. Because I made this one first and I was like, I don't need that. So I didn't do that on the second one. These are for my boobs, because Iris was born in December. I live in Sweden. We spend a lot of time in northern Sweden during the winters. And even if we didn't, we live in Sweden, so it's cold here during the winter. And somebody told me that you could get, I don't know what the English word is again. The Swedish word is mjölkstockning, but like a problem with, if you're breastfeeding and your boobs get cold, basically, you could get a problem with like the milk getting stuck. I don't know the English word for it. I'm hoping you understand me. Basically, the gist of it was you need to keep your boobs warm during winter. And we spent a lot of time outside during the winter. So I was like, I could buy myself a wool kind of bra, or I could just make these. That are exactly my size, modeled after me, and fit perfectly inside my bra. So that's what I did. And I used these so much that winter, and I'm really happy that I made them because I didn't have any problems and I was keeping warm, which was good. So basically I made these using short rows, and that was the first time I ever did short rows in a freestyle project. You could probably say like it's a big heel or something. But basically they go like this. You can't see it now because I'm wearing a lot of clothes, so I can't really fit it to my boob. But it goes like this around your boob inside the bra and keeps you warm. Perfect. So after those 3 projects, I was like, I'm a knitter now. I can do whatever. And I felt like I was in the like headspace of only knitting for the baby because she wasn't born yet, and I liked how that felt. So I was on the couch knitting away, knitting for our baby that was about to be born, and Simon was sat next to me playing Zelda Breath of the Wild on Nintendo Switch. It was a really good time actually, those few months. I really enjoyed that time. So we decided, like I said, we spent a lot of time in northern Sweden during the winter. We didn't want her to be cold. So I decided to make a onesie for her in merino. So the first one I made, and this feels so small now that I'm looking at it, but we used this one a lot during that like first time of her life. Like basically every day. It was amazing for like going on walks with like her stroller. Is it stroller? I felt like it might have been trolley, but that feels like it's something else. You understand me? Going for walks outside in the winter, or just when we were in northern Sweden and all that. So I made her this little tiny thing. This is the Anker's onesie by Petite Knit. I made the size 2 to 4 months. And I used the yarn Sandnes Sunday in the color Rust, which was 3554. And I just added these little wooden buttons. So this was the first like garment I ever made. Yeah, I made this before I made anything for myself. So yeah, I made her a little red onesie and we used it so much. So that was great. And then after that, we were like, okay, but she's gonna grow out of that, obviously, before this winter and like early spring is over. So she might need another one in a bigger size. So then I was like, I'm gonna do another pattern. So I got the Monday suit by Petite Knit. And also in Sandnes Sunday, the color 3161. It's a little bit creased because it's been folded. This is also in the size 2 to 4 months. But my gauge was a little bit off. I was actually gauging for these. And my gauge was a little bit off, so it's bigger, which was the intention. And this feels a little bit sentimental because I was actually knitting on this during our time in like the hospital when she was born. Not during the like actual delivery, but like when we were waiting and all of that stuff. I was actually knitting on this, so yeah. We used this too a lot when she grew out of the red one. So these two have seen a lot of wear. And they're very precious to me. The next thing I made her was this little pouch for her wooden building blocks. We got a lot of these building blocks at like a second-hand store, but they were in a plastic bag and we don't like plastic that much in this family. So I didn't want them to be in the plastic bag. So I made a little pouch. And this, I will be the first one to acknowledge that the dimensions of this is a little bit weird. I wish it would have been a little bit not as wide and a little bit longer, but this is what we ended up with. I was just going till I had no yarn left. I was doing this in Rauma finull in the colors 0432 and 4071. And after I finished it, I felted it and made this little thing that I could put a drawstring into. And like I said, I wish the dimensions would have been a little bit different, but it does the job and I'm very happy with it. It keeps her little wooden building blocks in there and yeah, it works great. So then I decided to make her another onesie because I was trying to think ahead. We were probably in summer now, or like spring at least. And I was trying to think ahead because it was like, okay, these two aren't gonna fit next winter. So if I start now, I can make her another one that she can use this winter. So I started another Anker's onesie. I don't have it here because she's actually using it to sleep in at preschool right now. I'll show you a picture. I think I have one. I call this the Spiderman onesie because I was doing it in leftover yarns. I had yarns left over from this one and from a sweater that I made for myself. And I was like, I can squeeze out a onesie in these ones. And it turned out very Spider-Man-esque. And that wasn't my intention, but that's what happened. And when I realized that was what was happening, I was like, I'm just gonna go for it. So she's sleeping in a little Spider-Man onesie right now, and I kind of like it. She's my little superhero. And I made this in the size 9 to 12 months, but I don't know what happened because it's a pattern that I've made before, with a yarn that I've made before, and I used the same needle size, but the gauge was way different. So I don't know if it's because I was getting more into my knitting, so I was loosening up or whatever, but the gauge was a lot bigger. So this project turned out a lot bigger than I intended. So it didn't really fit her when I wanted it to fit her because she's using it now and she's 16 months old and the size that I made was 9 to 12 months. So it got a lot bigger than intended. But when I realized that, I was fine with it. I was like, it'll fit her sometime because she's growing. But that meant it didn't fill like the need that I was trying to fill when I was making it, because my intention was that she was gonna have something to wear during that winter and that like autumn, and this would have been too big for her. So that brings me to the Sunday suit by Petite Knit. There's a lot of Petite Knit in this baby knit situation. I happen to like her onesies. I honestly will say that the fit of the Monday suit is my least favorite. The other ones have like an element of ribbing, like the Ankers. It has, the increases are ribbing, and the same with the Sunday suit that I'm gonna show you. The yoke is a ribbing situation element, and that makes the fit a lot better, I think, for a baby because they're growing, so it can just expand a little bit with them. I felt like this one didn't fit her as well as the other ones, so that's why I have made 2 Sunday suits and 2 Anker suits, but only one of this. So the first Sunday suit that I made was this one, and this one is in desperate need of a wash and a depilling. I know that. But this one is still being used, like, a lot. So when it comes to her, like these, I just wash them when they're in desperate need. Like, she spilled a lot of food on this one once, so I washed that then. Otherwise, I'll wash and depill them when I'm, like, putting them away for storage, if they're not really in need of a wash. So this one needs to be washed because she's actively wearing it. And yeah, I made this in because I wasn't really enjoying the Sandnes Garn Sunday. I feel like it's pilling a lot, and it's fine. I mean, that's life, and that's the nature of Merino. But at this point, I was a little bit more experienced with knitting and had explored more yarns. So instead, I made this in Knitting for Olives Merino, which I do like a lot better than the Sunday one. I don't feel like it pills as much. I like the feel of it better, and I just feel like it's a little bit better quality, to be honest. Was knit up in their Merino with 2 strands held double in the color navy. And with this one, I was really trying to make it fast because I had spent all that time making the Spiderman looking Anker's onesie. So we were getting to the point where she actually like needed this to be finished, and I hadn't really started it yet. So I was like, how can I speed this process up? I'm gonna steek it. So that's what I did. I knit this in the round and I steeked it. There's a whole video on that on this channel. I can link that below. And also with this, I made some modifications, and not really modifications. I did follow the pattern apart from the steeking part. But what I did do, because I wanted to make it in merino from Knitting for Olive, and I didn't want it to be, I wanted it to be quite dense, so I wanted to do the 2 strands together, which was messing up my gauge because the gauge would have been like accurate with 1 strand, but I wanted 2 strands because I wanted it to be a little bit denser, because she was at the age where she was actually starting to move around a little bit more, so she couldn't be like packaged into a little ball of heat when she was outside. So I wanted it to be a little bit denser so she wouldn't be cold. And that made my gauge 23 stitches per 10 centimeters instead of 28. And that's a big difference. So what I did was actually I did what Lizzie from Hive Knits would have said, would have called like some jiggery pokery. I did the math and realized that if I want this to be close to the size of 9 to 12 months, which was what I was going for, I need to make the size 1 to 2 months. So I actually followed the instructions for the 1 to 2 months in the pattern and ended up with this, which fit her perfectly that winter, and she's actually still wearing it. It's a little bit on the small side now, but we're also into spring, so that's fine. But she's actually still wearing it. It was a little big. I would have said probably the size would have been more like 12 to 18 months than 9 to 12 months, the size that I ended up with. But she's kind of tall for her like age, so it worked great. It fit her perfectly at around like 10 to 11 months, I would say. And then she's been wearing it up to now. So this has also served us very well. And then right after that, I found out that my sister was having a baby, and I wanted to make a little onesie for that baby too, because they do also spend a lot of time outside during the winter. And I had previously made a slipover for my sister in Knitting for Olive's Merino, and I had leftovers from that. I was like, okay, if I just get like 1 more ball of this yarn, I can do a onesie for her baby in the same color that I made her slipover, which I thought was kind of cute. So that's what I did. So I made it in Knitting for Olive's Merino, obviously, in the color Petroleum Green. I don't have that here because I gifted it a long time ago, so I'll show you a picture. Also made the Sunday suit, and I made the size 1 to 2 months. And it was kind of fun comparing it to this one when they were finished, because I made the same size with the same yarn, but like with 1 strand instead of 2 strands, and ended up with a very different size. So that was kind of a good show of gauge and what it actually does. So now there's 2 things left to show you, and neither of them are here because, as with all the other things that aren't here, Iris is using them on a daily basis. So they're with her at preschool. The first one is a Heartwarmer. I don't know what the English name of it is. I should have checked this before. Heartwarmer polo or sheet polo or something like that. Neck polo. I don't know. I'll put it in the description. The pattern is by Danny Sunshine, and it's basically a little like cowl thing, scarf that goes up here, and then it goes a little bit down on the body. And yeah, we needed that for winter, so I made that for her, and I did some modifications to it because in the pattern there is a stockinette collar, and I don't really like the look of that, and I don't really like how it rolls. So I did do a ribbing collar instead. Other than that, I followed the pattern for the section around the body, basically. I made it in Sandnes Garn Merino wool, which is a superwash yarn, and that was a conscious choice. I'm not really a big fan of the superwash yarns. I don't, like, there's a lot of aspects to them that are preferable, but there's also a lot of aspects of them that are not preferable to me personally, which, I mean, it's just a preference. You do you. But I don't really like the climate aspect of it, and I don't really like how it feels. It's very slippery, which I don't really enjoy. But when it comes to baby knits, I do see a big use for the superwash yarns. So I chose this yarn because, like with these, I did non-superwash, but these are like on her body, and we didn't like let her eat dinner in these. We put them on when we were going outside. So she didn't really get a lot of food on them or stuff like that. She did obviously get them dirty because she's a kid, and that's what kids do, and that's what kids should do. But like, she didn't spill yogurt or something on them because she wasn't eating in those. So I could keep up with the cleaning of them without like felting them. But when it came to this like scarf thing that I was making, I realized she's gonna have this like around her mouth a lot. She might be eating it, like, you know, she's a kid, she's gonna get it dirty. So I wanted the superwash yarn because I felt like it could be a good aspect to be able to just throw that into the washer. Honestly, I haven't had to wash it once, and she's been using it for like 6 months at least, but I have the option if I need to. And yeah, I made that in the merino wool in the color curry, the size 1 to 2 years. And I made it so that it was a little bit big for her when she started to use it, but because I wanted her to be able to use it for a long time. Because it's like a cowl scarf thing. It's not like it matters if it's a little big at the beginning, so that she can use it. I'm hoping that she can use it next winter too, but we'll see. And the last project that I'm gonna show you, I'm not really gonna talk that much about because I did talk a lot about this one in the last podcast episode because I forgot to show it to you until like the last episode that I did. So I'm not really gonna go into this one deep, but it's the Horsetooth Pullover by Laura Spargo Anderson. And I actually made this for Iris also in a yarn that I thrifted from, I think it was from the Red Cross. They were having like a sale, and I was like, oh, there's yarn here. And it was like a super fine merino yarn, non-superwash. The brand was Create with Adlibris, and the color was 8141. And I just went for it. I really, like, it's not a color that I would have made for myself because I am not a pink person. But I think it's a great color. It's beautiful, and I love the sweater, and she uses it a lot. And yeah, I made the size 1 year. I didn't swatch again, so which was intentional. So it's a lot bigger than like 1 year, which was my intention, so that she could use it now. And it still fits her, so she'll use that as long as it fits. And I added a double folded collar, and I added some German short rows to the back just to raise the neck a little bit. But otherwise I followed the pattern. Those are all the baby knits that I made in 2021 and 2022. I haven't made that many this year, not like when it comes to garments. I'll probably have to because we're coming up on summer now, and I don't think that this one will fit Iris next winter. So we'll see what I'm gonna do with that information. She's getting to a size now, you know, with baby knits, you're like, oh, I'll just make her something. It'll be fast, she's so small. But she's getting to a size now where it's still a lot of knitting, so it still takes you a lot of time. Because if you compare, like this one was super quick because it is really tiny. But compared to like this one, this will look crazy. There's like a big difference because kids do grow. So if I make her something for next winter, it will probably take me a lot longer. So we'll see what I'll do with that information. At some point, I will probably just have to swallow my pride and start buying her wool things. We'll see. Or I just make them. Yeah, we'll see. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. And the next video that I make will be book 1. I'm very excited about it because me and Francesca from An Italian Knitter, we made a little swap. So I sent her some yarn that I wasn't using that I knew that she would love. And she sent me a gift card at a bookstore, which I would love. So I got some books, and I promise you that in the next video, I'm going to show them to you. Because I'm getting back into my reading, and I'm really enjoying it. So I am going to show them to you in the next video. But I'm waiting for, I did order like a few more books that I'm waiting for. They're probably arriving in the mail this week, I hope. So as soon as those are here, I'll do a little book haul for you, which has been a long time coming, let me tell you. Until then, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you when I see you. Bye!